Click. Hello, everybody. Hello and welcome. Happy Thursday to everybody. I'm looking on my other screen to click the go live button over on. All right. We are live in all the places. And StreamYard, it looks like, has a new layout for Instagram. So that's kind of cool. All right. I like how that looks. Way better. All right, guys. I'm super excited to have you here with me today. This is going to be a great conversation. So I want to welcome everybody. And I'm Leslie Vitale, as you guys probably know, business strategist and mentor for health and wellness professionals. And I got a question for you. I think it's a little bit rhetorical, but I'll ask it anyway. Have you ever felt frustrated that even though you deliver those amazing results for your patients and clients, you're still not getting the referrals that, honestly, you kind of feel like you deserve, right? I know I've been there before. And that is exactly what we're going to talk about today. Referrals are so critical to the health of your business. So I'm very much looking forward to chatting with my guest, who is Stacey Brown Randall. And Stacey is the founder of Building a Referable Business. And the author, she has a brand new book, a second book, I might add, entitled The Referable Client Experience. So what we're going to do today is unpack what makes your client experience truly referable, including the 3 stages that shape how clients feel, how they engage, and ultimately whether they send others your way. So if you've ever wondered how to bridge the gap between doing great work and actually receiving consistent referrals, you are in the right place. All right, let's jump in. So Stacey, welcome. It is wonderful to see you again, my friend. How are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me back on.
You bet. Well, this is such a great topic. Frankly, it is a topic that I talk about a lot. In fact, I just had a one-on-one session just before I hopped on this live, and we talked all about getting referrals. So, it is a really, really critical piece of building, a profitable private practice, which is the area of work that I focus on. So I'm really excited to get your, some of your strategies and, just kind of having you share your thoughts with my audience on this process, because it is incredibly important. All right. With that all being said, let's start with a little bit of background on you. So highly specialized, you stay in the lane of referrals, which is really so cool. What a great example of niching, right? I love that about your business. So give us a little highlight, maybe a little background on how you landed here.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. I have been teaching people how to generate referrals without asking or incentivizing or having to manipulate for over a decade now, for like 12 years. And sometimes I'm like, I've been talking about the same topic for like a lifetime. It sometimes feels like, but there is still so much that people do not understand about referrals. And there's so much bad advice out there about what it looks like to generate referrals, and usually advice that makes people makes them feel like minimalized in terms of why they're not getting referrals. And one of the ones that I always hear when it comes to client experience is exactly what you said. Like, I'm doing great work, so I should be getting referrals. And the idea is that doing great work should equal referrals, except that it doesn't. And that is always one that I think people are scratching their heads with. They're like, I don't understand why they love me, but they don't refer me. So I have been spending the last 12 years really breaking down and understanding the science behind referrals. And that is what informs the methodology and the philosophy. And of course, leads into the strategies and tactics that I teach my clients, and really want people to understand that referrals exist in an ecosystem inside your business. And so, even though I've been teaching this for 12 years, some of these things, some of the strategies I've been teaching for 12 years, and other ones are ones that we see them work in our clients' business. And we're like, okay, this is one that can work for other folks too. So for me, it really was, I needed referrals for my second business after my first business failed, and I wasn't willing to ask for them. So I was like, great, what else am I going to do? And I just started throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing what would stick. And then what stuck, I kept doing. And then my clients that I was productivity coaching with at the time said, hey, can you teach that to us? And everything grew from there. But it really started with, I need my business to be successful. I don't need to be a 2-time member of the Business Failure Club. And I need to do it in a way that would work for me. And referrals were it, but it couldn't be the way that we're taught. I didn't want to ask or compensate or be promotional and gimmicky. And I have 3 kids. And so I certainly wasn't going to spend every night of the week feeling like I was running around town going to different networking events.
Exactly. Well, that is such an interesting backstory. And I really do appreciate that you've honed in on this one area of business building. So, and I'm super impressed. I have to say that you have your second book out, which I know we'll talk about here shortly. But to kick things off, I heard you say the client experience. What is that? And why is it more than customer service? What is the difference?
Yeah, that is a common mistake that people make. So client experience is defined as how your client feels while they are working with you. And feelings, most people believe that feelings are dictated by the work you do or how you solve problems, but it is so much more than that. And so yes, customer service, as the typical definition is that it's defined as like how you solve problems, or when clients have questions, how you answer the questions. It's an important part, but it is only a small piece of your overall client experience. So I find most folks think when I say, tell me about your client experience, they're like, oh, yeah, this is how we solve problems, or this is how we answer our clients' questions. I'm like, no. That's a piece. I want to know the whole thing. I want to understand the whole part of your client experience. And I'm doing a masterclass right now on the Referable Client Experience, and we actually had our first class today. And one of the activities everyone's doing for their homework is they're actually mapping out what they do from start to finish. Like, what are the things that you do for your clients? And there's some things that I have them paying attention to and looking at. And one of the folks said, she was like, one of the attendees was like, I never thought about my business in this way. Like, I had never thought, oh, it's like everything I'm doing that evoking emotions from my clients. And it's looking at it and paying attention to it in that way. Oh, you're muted.
All right. Well, that's interesting. I don't know how I got muted. Anyway, can you help us understand what that looks like? Okay, so the homework was to map out everything you do with a client.
Yes. Okay. This can sound daunting.
Say that evokes emotion. So
Yeah.
can you give some examples? Like, I wouldn't even know where to start.
Yeah. So this can feel very daunting. You're like, map down everything I do. But there's obviously a very simple way that I teach it. So the first thing that I tell folks is that you may have multiple ways that you work with clients. So when a client comes in to work with me, I have about 5 different ways that clients work with me, unless it's like a one-off, like this masterclass that I'm doing because of the book launch, right? But that means, depending on if a client is a VIP client or in my coaching program, building a referable business, or they're in my referral accelerator, those are 3 different ways that a client works with me, which means those are 3 different client experiences. So when you start thinking about like, how do I evoke emotions and what is my client experience made up of? And now we're saying, wait, and I have multiple client experiences because of how I work with my clients. It's just something to pay attention to. But here's how I teach this, and this is how I walk people through doing the homework so it's doable, right? So the first thing I want you to understand is the formula behind the client experience. And the formula is, most people believe it's just the work you do. But a referable client experience is more than the great work you do. It's the work you do plus the relationship that you build. And when you are doing work built, like work outreach, work delivery, and you are building relationships, they're usually in terms of output, like you're doing some type of outreach with them. So we call them touch points, right? So there's the work touch points and the relationship touch points. Work touch points are pretty self-explanatory. Relationship touch points are things that you do that there's no work truly being delivered, or maybe it's like work adjacent. So like if you're wrapping up with your final coaching session and then there is like a small gift that you give as a celebratory, we're done, you did great, right? We've got a work touch point going along with a relationship building touch point. But if you send a holiday card, that can stand as a relationship touch point as well. What I have people do, though, is they start by answering this one simple question. When a client says yes to working with you, what happens next? And it is whatever happens next, right? In my world, it typically means when a client says, yes, I'm going to join your program or work with you in this way, they're filling out some type of online registration. And so you write that down. They fill out the online registration form. And then the question is, what happens next? And you're like, okay, so after they fill out the registration form, what happens next? In my world, they get a coaching agreement to sign, right? So they sign the coaching agreement. Great. That's your second work touch point. What happens next? And like, well, then after they sign the coaching, then they get the welcome email with the pre-work to complete. And you literally ask yourself, what happens next and next and next until you've mapped out everything you're doing. Now, here's the thing. 9 times out of 10, when a client does this, I'm looking at an entire list of W's. They're just work touch points, right? This is all the work they're doing. Sometimes they have to go back and be like, wait, we do holiday cards, or we do a client appreciation, right? Or I do send a welcome card when they're getting started with me. So then we look at things you're doing that kind of like extend the work, they're work adjacent, but they're really about seeing your client where they are in your client experience. And that's based on the stage that they're in as they move through your client experience. So we map out all our touch points, and then we mark the ones that are work as W's, and we mark the ones that are relationship as R's. And that gives us a really clear viewpoint on this is what your client goes through from start to finish when they choose to work with you. And now we've got a baseline to work from.
Okay. All right. Well, that definitely sounds less daunting when you describe it that way, right? Okay. So basically we're categorizing like W's and R's, right? Like kind of workflow versus relationship building types of tasks or things that we're integrating into our program, right?
Yeah. So, for some folks, the work could be like the sessions that you're having with your client. Those are your work touch points,
Sure.
right? It's anytime you're delivering output around work, those are your work touch points. And it's anything that's not really delivering work would be considered relationship. But here's what I want folks to know is don't be surprised and don't be upset or like think you're doing something wrong. If you map out your entire client experience for a service you provide from start to finish and you don't have any R's or very few R's, unfortunately, that's actually quite normal. It's just also something that we can solve.
And yeah, how do we fix that?
Yeah. So one of the things I tell folks is we don't just jump in and we're like, okay, we got to do some R's. We need some relationship touch points that we're going to do. So like, let's decide to send a bottle of champagne, right? Like it's not like willy-nilly in terms of like how we're trying to really bridge that gap to really understanding how we build relationships with our clients. When we're talking about relationship building touch points, we're talking about meeting your clients where they are based on what they are experiencing in the moment of what stage they're in your business. So when you understand the 3 client stages, new, active, and alumni, then you can be like, okay, what is our relationship building touch point in the new stage? Maybe what are our 2 or 3 relationship building touch points going to be in the active stage? And then once they move to alumni, there is no more work delivery, right? So we don't look at that as the client experience ends. We look at it as an extension. But once they're no longer working with you, right? I call them alumni clients. Some people call them past clients. But once they're no longer working with you, it's all relationship building outreach and touch points that you're doing. So what does that look like, right? And there are what I would say pitfalls for each of these stages that people overlook. And if they paid attention to them, they could figure out really easily what relationship touch points they need to be doing. So one of the big pitfalls in the new stage is not addressing what we call the quiet voice. The quiet voice is all the things the client's thinking about what they just said yes to with working with you that they're not telling you. So yeah, it's got some anticipation. There's probably some excitement and anticipation. There's probably also a little bit of, I don't know if I made the right choice. There may be some buyer's remorse, right? There may be like, does this person really know what they're doing? Or am I going to have to do a lot of work? Am I going to have to change? Like, what does that look like? Most of the time, we jump right into delivering the work instead of pausing and doing a touch point that sees them where they are and is like, acknowledging what they're not saying. I call it being able to label what the quiet voice is that your clients are feeling. Because once you label it for them, like, hey, it would be normal to feel this way, right? And you can do that like in what we call a journey card, a handwritten card. You can send your clients when they say yes. It's like, hey, I know you're going to experience these feelings now. This is normal. The minute you normalize it, it stops having like control over them. And they stop worrying about, did I make the right choice? They're like, oh, she gets what I'm feeling. He gets what I'm feeling. Yeah, I've made the right decision. And so, but you have to know what your clients are going through in the new stage, the active stage, and the alumni stage, and then meeting them with the relationship building touch points so it's, again, it's not like, let's just send champagne. It's like, okay, what are they experiencing right now? And how can I develop this relationship with them and it not be sending them another email, right, with something for them to do. And it's not work. It's really personalized in terms of what the client is feeling. And it just really, it hits the clients differently because they're like, wow, she or he sees me. They see me. And that's really important.
So are you saying the first step is to identify what step they're in?
Yeah. So you should know what your stages are.
Okay.
So that's one of the things I have folks do is like another exercise I have folks do is like, okay, when you've mapped out start to finish your work and your relationship touch points, then we go back in and we're like, okay, so at the start of them saying yes to working with you, until what point is that defined as your new stage? And everybody gets to define that differently. When I was a productivity coach, the new stage started from the minute they said yes and sent me an email and said, yes, I want to work with you. And I sent them the agreement to sign until they had their first coaching session with me. That is how I define the new stage, right? And so then I pay attention to what are they feeling during that new stage with a quiet voice. But once I had the first coaching session, then they moved into the active stage. And if they were coaching with me for a year, the active stage is for the rest of the next 11 months or whatever that year is until they're done coaching. And so you define your stages, and then we look to make sure we have relationship touch points in each of them.
Can you give me an example of what you would do in the new stage?
Yes.
Because, well, I was just going to add, just to acknowledge that it really is a thing. People get scared. They say yes, and they're like, holy crap, what did I just say yes to? I've been on my mind, right? And so, it is totally natural and normal, and buyer's remorse is a thing.
It's
so it really, really is. And it doesn't have anything to do with you, most likely. It's just, we just kind of, I don't know, it just happens. So how do we get into their heads and try to calm that anxiety down?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say, the longer you've been in business, you probably know. You probably know what your clients are feeling. You can anticipate if you've never asked the question, but clients leave clues without realizing it, right? So they start coaching with you and then they'll say like, wow, like this is great. I was concerned it wouldn't be when I first said yes, right? So they don't usually tell you in the moment, these are my concerns. But once you've proven yourself, they're like, okay, this is so much better than I thought it would be, or this is so much easier than I thought it would be, or wow. Like, so then you're like, oh, that's something they were feeling in the new stage. So here's the example that I always give. And it is one that anyone can do because it doesn't take a budget. And so if you can't do all the things you want to do that cost money, this one you should be able to do. When I was a productivity coach, I knew when someone said yes to hiring me that there was this eager anticipation to make changes. And then they were immediately going to be hit with, oh, she's going to ask me to do work. I'm going to have to be willing to change. I'm going to have to do work. I'm going to have someone hold me accountable, right? All the things that they should be able to do on their own, but they can't, which is why they're hiring a coach, right? Like that's the whole point of how they saw it, right? And so for me, I knew that and I acknowledged it. And I had just sent a handwritten card and it was called the journey card. So most people send a welcome card. We're so excited to work with you. Thanks for joining our client family. That card, if you write the card like that, you're writing it about yourself. Thanks for giving me money is effectively what you're saying. I want you to write that card better. I want that card to not be a welcome card, but to be a journey card. And it to say, so this is what mine would say to my clients. I'm excited to work with you. I know working with me is going to take you on a journey where you are going to feel challenged and you are going to feel stretched and you won't always love it. And that's okay. That's normal. I'm your co-pilot and you're not on this journey alone. So I named what I knew they were already thinking. And it showed up in a way that is not a text message, not a voicemail, and absolutely not an email. It showed up in a handwritten card, so it had even greater impact. It was going to be noticed and recognized. It could be kept and remembered and referenced if needed. And it told them, I see you. Like, I know what you're going through. And it's delivered, right? It's being mailed while they're signing their coaching agreement and we're scheduling their first coaching session and they're paying their deposit or whatever it is, or putting in their information so we can charge automatic like draws or whatever. So like it's happening while the other work outreach, the work touch points are happening, but it's seeing them where they are. And it's very, very simple. And what I find with people with the client experience is they try to overcomplicate this. They're like, how amazing can I make this? What's the best touch point I can do? I'm like, your clients don't need that. They need you to recognize where they are.
Okay. I really like that. So you send that out, or you used to send that out right after someone said yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's not me centric,
right.
which I really want to highlight here for everybody. It's not about me. It's about where they are, and acknowledging that, that it's exciting, but it can also be scary.
Right. And you have to, like, this is what people always say to me. They're like, well, my client experience doesn't evoke those kind of emotions. Like, that's not what they're worried about. That's not their quiet voice. And so my answer is like, well, then what is it? And if you don't know, you need to go ask. And I would not ask a client who's just signed with you. I would ask a client who's had some success with you. And the question you want to ask them is, hey, when you first said yes to working with me, what were maybe the concerns or pauses or things you were anxious about that you never verbalized to me?
Okay.
And then so they have to say, and they may be like, oh, well, I was nervous that I was going to waste my money, right? Or I was nervous that, this was not going to go according to plan because I had been burned before, or I was, whatever it is, right? Like I was dreading this part of the process, right? And so then it's great for you just to get feedback on what your clients think, but you really need to get feedback from a client who's actually crested over. They're no longer new. They're more in the active or alumni phase, and they can reflect back.
I think that's a great takeaway. And for everyone listening, a little bit of homework, right? An action step that you can take. Really like that. Okay, so I want to make sure I'm clear. We have this, what you're calling a CX formula?
Yeah. That's CX just stands for client experience.
Gotcha.
And the client experience formula is the work you do, the work touch points, plus the relationship touch points you do. You need both for a referable client experience.
Okay. And you walked us through those 3 stages already. And it's our job to really be able to identify where each of our clients are in those 3 stages, correct?
Yeah, what they're feeling. So here's what I tell folks. First, map out your entire client experience, start to finish. Then figure out, do you have any relationship touch points, or are they all work touch point, your W and your R's, right? Then look at that client experience from start to finish and put in and put brackets around, okay, these 5 things is what happens in the new stage. And then with work touch point number 6 through 33, they're in the active stage, and then they're done. And everything after that, they're now in the alumni stage. So you look at your client experience, you break it down by the formula of work and relationship building. Then you bookend it based on what's new, what's active, and when they're done working with you, what's alumni. And now you're looking at, okay, now I know my 3 stages, what's happening in those 3 stages, if I'm missing any relationship touch points. And the easiest ones to plant at that point are the ones that identify and match or meet your client where they are emotionally as they move through the stages.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm curious, when did it first occur to you that the client experience matters perhaps a little differently than you had originally thought or assumed? Maybe that's a better word.
Yeah, it's such a great question because, I don't know if it's like this for you, but I think sometimes what I would be like, oh my God, that's a brilliant thought, happens when I don't see it coming. Like, it's never when I'm trying to okay, let's think this through, right? It's just like, oh yeah, duh, there it is. It's like right in front of you.
It's when you're not really trying.
And then you have the thought. Yes, it's so true. And so for me, as I mentioned earlier, my first business failed. I had to go back to corporate America. I got certified as a productivity coach while in corporate America, left and started my productivity and business coaching practice. My first 3 clients that came on board were people that I knew, like they were part of my network. I told them what I was doing now, and they were like, oh, I bet you're amazing at that. I need to coach with you. And I'd be like, great, because I need clients. This is lovely. And then the first client that came on board referred me to the 4th client I started working with. And I was like, well, this is different from my first business, because my first business, which was a human resource consulting firm, I never got any referrals. I literally like landed every client based on networking. So I was like, well, this is lovely. I love this. And on a whim, I kid you not, on a whim, I decided to write a journey card to this new client, my first client that was referred to me, my 4th client. And I wrote a journey card because something she said when she was in her buyer's journey and we were talking back and forth and she was deciding if she was going to hire me. There's something she said that just triggered me. I was like, oh, I need to address that. So when she said yes, I sat down, I wrote her a journey card, I mailed it to her. And then this used to be like this is like 2013, like when I would actually go to my clients' offices. Like, I don't think people really do that anymore. But back in the day, I used to go to my clients' offices. And so I showed up for her first coaching call or her first coaching session. I show up, I walk into her office, and I happen to see at the corner of my eye on her corkboard, my note. And I was like, oh my gosh, the journey card. And I didn't call it the journey card then, right? It was just the card, the new client card, right? I was like, oh my God, the card's on the wall. And then she saw me looking at it and she goes, oh yeah. She was like, I loved that card. I've never gotten a card like that before. And I was like, ding, 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 note to self, send this to all new clients from this point forward. And that's really for me. And then I started paying attention because, part of my story is in that first year of productivity coaching, I got 112 referrals I didn't ask for. Some of them came from clients and some of them didn't. They came from like other people in my network, centers of influence. But when I look back on the ones that came from clients, I started paying attention, like this is a different group that's referring to me. And to do that, they need a different type of experience where I'm delivering great work, but I'm also building relationships. And from that perspective, that's what got me thinking about it and really focusing in on it. And I worked on that, like that client experience for years without really thinking it was a strategy, like something I would teach my clients. And then around 2019, 2020, I was like, wait a minute, this is a strategy my clients need to know. And I started teaching it to them. And when I teach something to my clients early on, it's also how I'm validating it. Right. My current clients are already getting it for free. I'm just adding the strategy. I'm validating it. I'm seeing them do the work. I'm seeing what work they will do, what work they won't do. And then I'm seeing the results they have. And then once it's been validated, then I'm like, okay, this is a standard part of the strategies that I teach all my clients. And then, of course, that's how it ended up in my second book, The Referable Client Experience.
Oh, such an interesting backstory.
Yeah.
That's super cool. So let me ask you this. How do businesses then and practices, how do we bridge the gap between a referable client then, or let me rephrase that, a referable client experience and actually getting referrals?
Yes.
All right. So like, help us understand how do we do this?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Most people come to me and they're like, what do I need to do to get referrals in my client experience? And based on everything we've talked about, I tell them the same thing we've talked about. First, we've got to make sure you're referable. And making sure you're referable means that you understand the emotions you want to evoke from your clients, that you have your client experience written down, you know your stages, new, active, and alumni, you know the formula, work touch points plus relationship touch points, and you are intentionally, right, working with your clients in that way. Once I know you have those things in place from a referable client experience, and there's more, right? There's some pitfalls we look out for. There's some other best practices we put into place. Once I know you have that in place, now we can bridge the gap to referrals. We never start with referrals. We have to first make sure that the experience someone's having is like priming them to think about and be open to the idea for referrals, because you're actually going to bridge the gap to referrals in 3 ways. The first way is just what I call the right people. They are just clients who show up, they decide to hire you, and then they can't help themselves and they tell everybody.
Love those people.
Love those people. The problem is we cannot predict when they're going to walk through the door, and they have to self-identify, right? They have to just start referring. They have to just start telling people, right? And so from that perspective, when that happens, right, and you get that first referral from that client, like that's another whole strategy that I teach. Actually, my first book is based on generating business referrals without asking. Like when someone starts referring you, there's a whole other strategy we drop them into so they get a referral experience in addition to that client experience because they're referring you now. So there's a different way we show care to them based on the fact that they've started referring you. We don't, inside your client experience, we don't build a strategy or a system to identify the right people. They have to self-identify. They just have to start referring. They're great and they're amazing, but there's not a strategy around that. The other two ways, though, are what we call referral hot zones and referral moments.
Okay.
So when you have a hot zone is when you are more likely at certain points in your client experience where people are starting to refer. And in my book, in chapter 8, I teach 3 different ways of how to identify to get to this data. There's a way for the person who's like, I want to know everything, every data point. I'm going to go deep on this. And then there's the person who's like, I'm not doing that. Like, what's the easy answer? And then there's the person who's like, I'm not doing that either. So like, how do I do this as I move forward? So we teach it 3 different ways in the book. But if you can identify your referral hot zones, right, then we can figure out, okay, you're more likely to get referrals after your first coaching session. Let's just use that as an example, right? Because you had your first coaching session, you had some breakthrough moments in terms of mindset, and they're looking at things differently than they ever have before. They're kind of leaving on this high. And then you've noticed there's a trickle effect of sometimes that they are actually referring people to you after that moment. So a referral seed that we would then come in once we've identified that as a hot zone. And you only do this when you identify hot zones because they're primed for it. It's not like every client's referring you after the first session, but we know there's a likelihood that it'll happen because that's what your data showed. At that hot zone moment, right? We're coming in and we're looking at it and we're like, okay, people after that first session are jazzed. They're excited. And that anticipation that was in the very beginning is back. And they're telling people about it. So we encourage them to tell people about it. But the language we use is hey, when you're telling people about, hey, after this session, you very well may feel different. You may feel empowered. You may be like, oh my gosh, I'm in a different place and I want other people to know. That's very normal. But when you do that, people are going to have questions for you. And they're going to be questions you probably can't answer. They're probably going to be like, well, how does it work? And what is happening? And all you know is what we went through and the outcome you had. So when you talk to people about this feeling that you have and this excitement that you now experience, when people are asking you questions about it and you're telling people about it and they're asking you questions, please don't feel like you have to answer their questions. Just connect them with me and I will answer their questions for them. And that way they can understand it. Now, here's the thing. I didn't actually say, and refer them to me. I implied it with my language. I implied it with the referral seed. And so that's an indirect referral seed. And it was much more natural, don't you think? It was like, hey, when you're telling people about this, because we know people do after their first session, like we know this is when people start talking to people, like that's normal. That's good. And people are going to have questions that you may not want to answer, can't answer, don't have time to answer. Just connect them to me. Now we're telling them how to connect them to us. Like just connect them to me and I'll answer their questions. Now we're being helpful. We're not asking them or telling them to refer us. And that is key. But the referral seeds that we plant in those referral hot zones are very indicative on what your hot zones are. And so I always tell folks, like, you got to tell me what your hot zones are before we can figure out exactly what the referral seed is we want to plant there.
Okay.
Oh, and then sorry, the third way. There was that third way. I forgot. And that's, those are just the right referral moments. Right? That is just like something happened, something said. And I always tell my clients, I want you to know how to respond. Right? So it's like one of the things that people forget, the easiest referral seed you can plant during our client experience is just reminding a referred client they were referred to you. Super simple, but it's just, I brought on a new client, right? I brought on this new client, Andy. Hey, Andy, I'm so glad we have this chance to work together. It wouldn't be possible. Right? If you weren't referred to me by Tom, I'm so glad that Tom referred you to me. It's like planting the referral seed to your client, that reminding them they were referred. And that's what we talk about from like right moment type seeds. It's just one of those things that you can do if the client was referred to you that I don't want you to miss out on.
Okay. I love that. Tell us more about this book of yours.
Yeah. So I'll show it so people can see it. And sometimes it helps people.
The link up, everybody.
Yeah.
If you're interested in grabbing it, which I will do, I have Stacey's first book, and it's awesome.
Thank you.
Highly recommend one. Like, I don't think that is going away.
Nope.
It's full of lots of really great strategies and pearls that I think would be really beneficial to everybody. But I am curious about this one. So tell us more, please.
Yeah. So everything we've been talking about, you're going to be able to find inside the book, the Referable Client Experience. What people have questions about, though, is like, what books should they read first, or how do these books work together, right? Like, a normal question would be like, if I read your second book, is it basically going to regurgitate everything from your first book? It's not, no, but it's a question that people ask, right? It's a concern people have. So I teach with my clients 20 different referral strategies. Not that any of my clients need all of them, but they're available depending on what their needs are. Mm-hmm. Inside those 20 strategies are 3 foundational strategies. And it is the 3 groups of people that you can generate referrals from. Number 1 are your existing referral sources, the people who already refer you now, whether they're clients or centers of influence or family and friends. It's the people who are already referring you. My first book is based on getting more referrals from those people.
Okay.
The second group that you can get referrals from are the client experience, which is what, of course, this book, the second book, is based on, is that second group of getting referrals from your clients through the client experience. And the third and final foundational strategy is the potential referral source group. And those are people that you wish would refer, but never have. Maybe there's someone you're connected with. Maybe they're a center of influence. Maybe it's a past client you haven't worked with in a while, whatever it is, right? They are people that you wish would refer, but never have. That book doesn't exist yet. It takes me some time to write a new book, but I teach it to my clients. I just haven't written a book on it yet.
Okay. I love you. Already got a third topic. Yeah. As if you need to write another book right now. Yeah, right. I think we got all right. I love it. Yeah. So, well, I, for one, am going to go buy this book. Can I get it on Amazon, or do I need to go to your website? Okay.
Nope. You can get it wherever books are sold. There is the printed copy, the ebook copy, and the audio version.
Oh, really? Okay. We can get an ebook version. That's fabulous. Okay. Yeah. Great. So just want to recommend that everyone head on over to the Referable Client Experience.com and grab this brand new book, hot off the press, right? When did you publish?
Towards the end of October.
Okay. Oh, literally hot off the press. So I can't wait to get my hands on it. All right. So as we start to wrap up, Stacey, any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our audience today?
Yeah, here's the thing I want you to know. If you do great work, and I'm sure everyone watching does, right? You do the best you can do. Not perfect work. I didn't say perfect work. I said you do great work and you believe you're a valuable resource. And you're not receiving referrals, I want you to know it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It just means you don't know how to bridge the gap to having a referable client experience to then be able to generate referrals. So even though you deserve referrals, you're not owed them. You're going to have to be willing to do a little bit of work. So the homework that we gave during this session today, I highly recommend people take the time to do so that they can actually start building their referable client experience.
Okay. I think that's a great tip. All right. What an incredible conversation with Stacey Brown Randall. And I really love, Stacey, how you broke down that client experience into really 3 very clear steps and how those touch points can make your business unforgettable. So I really like that about our conversation. And again, I would head on over, grab that book. You will not be sorry. It really is a good, I can't speak to the second one, but I for sure can speak to the first one because I have that on my own bookshelf. So head on over to referrableclientexperience.com or Amazon if you prefer. Grab that second book, put it on your shelf, give it a read. I think it'll really give you some good strategies to help you move forward to make your practice more referable. And if you found this conversation helpful, just would ask if you could give us a like. If you're over on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode of Live with Leslie. If you're over on Instagram, give us a follow. Would really appreciate that. And I just want to thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you got a ton of value, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.